The poor righteous teachers, not because we poor, but because we teach the poor.
The subconscious mind will produce what you program it.
What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Rat food.
Disgusting. That came out of me. Like, insane.
Why is it always the Jewish people? We didn't do anything.
Come again?
It wasn't us.
There is only one country that launched a deadly attack on the U.S. and still never got hit back.
Israeli forces blowing up a residential building in Gaza, not for some military operation, but for a gender reveal. Yeah.
Happy birthday, King Trump. Happy birthday, King Trump. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, King Trump.
White churches have not just been supported by white supremacy, they have served as its headquarters.
We didn't cross the border crossed us. Get the fuck out of here.
When somebody calls you a white supremacist, they're doing two things. Number one, they're trying to silence you.
And that's it. And that's it. We just want you to shut the fuck up. There's no second thing.
Horchata isn't Mexican. It's North African.
Did you know that American Indians were once the tallest people in the world? And it's the reason why so many black American basketball players are so tall today.
The black man thinks that if he becomes a better house nigger, the white man will be more merciful to him.
So what were black Indians called before they were called Indian?
Before being called Indians, the people now known as Black Indigenous or Aboriginal Americans often identified with their specific tribal names and affiliations, such as Yamasee, Washita, or Yamakra. These names were based on their own languages, cultures, and territories. The term Indian was a colonial misnomer imposed by European settlers. Remember, their identities were diverse and rich long before these labels.
Can you tell me all of the black Indian tribes?
Sure. There are many tribes with black indigenous or Afro-Indigenous heritage. Some well-known ones include the Yamasee, Washita, Lumbee, and Seminole, especially the Black Seminoles. Other tribes with significant black indigenous populations or historical connections include the Cherokee Freedmen, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Creek Freedmen. Each tribe has its unique history and cultural blend.
Você não fala inglês? Eu não falo nada de inglês. Inclusive, eu estava aqui fazendo um festival de blues.
Mas você canta em inglês?
Eu canto em inglês.
Mas como é que você faz? Você decora pelo som?
Eu decoro porque eu escuto música americana o dia inteiro, né? E a vida inteira eu sempre ouvi.
Blues também?
Blues, jazz, funk, rhythm and blues, reggae, essas coisas.
Agora, você teve um festival de blues. E você cantou o que lá?
Cantei blues.
Bluesão. Qual é que você cantou?
Sei lá, posso tocar aqui
uma palhinha.
Toquei uma música que chama Blues and Lonesome, do Little Walter. I'm blue and lonesome, Lord, as any way could be.
When the Europeans arrived in the colonies, the American Indians towered over them. Being 6 foot tall was normal for the American Indian, while the average Spaniard was only 4'7". When the Spaniard Hernando de Soto met Chief Tuscaloosa, he was in awe of his stature because he stood nearly 7 feet tall. By the way, Tuscaloosa means black warrior. Most people say that the bulk of black American ancestry comes from West Africa, but their average heights are 5'7" and below, while the average black American male is 5'9". According to genetic testing, the reason why black Americans became shorter is because of newly imported enslaved Africans. And this matches with the genetic testing that our American Indian ancestors were already here and the Africans were brought over later to mix with us. So if you believe that Black Americans don't have American Indian ancestry, that means that you believe that Black Americans mutated significantly from their African brothers and sisters within a few generations. The American Indian ancestry must be the reason why so many Black Americans consistently make the Guinness Book of World Records for the tallest men in the world.
There have been studies on this. Local news overrepresents Black folks as perpetrators, overrepresents white folks as victims. So the message that gets sent is they're dangerous, and specifically to you. They are not only bad people, they're going to hurt you. So therefore, we want to keep them on that side of town. We want to keep their children in those schools over there. We don't want to work around them. We don't want to live around them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that message comes through loud and clear in the way that media represents people of color. You know, whenever we, thinking about Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old child that was shot in Cleveland by police, when that happened, what did they do? The first news story in Cleveland that made a big splash was about Tamir Rice's parents and the history of domestic abuse and criminality among his parents, not about the cop that killed him. We talk worse about Black victims than we do white killers. What did we say about Ted Bundy? Oh, he was so smart and he was so quiet and he always seemed so nice. Every time one of these white boys goes and shoots up a school, what do we say? We had no idea he was going to do this. So we talk better. We have more sympathy for white folks who commit mass murder, bury bodies under the house, cook them up in a soup pot and eat them, right? Than we do Black folks who were killed by police. We start digging for every bad thing they ever did. We want to know if they had a juvenile record. We want to know if they'd ever been arrested. That's what the media does. And until that changes, I'm afraid white folks will stay in denial, and it'll be very hard for us to move forward, whether we're talking about cops or just average everyday folks.
Wait a minute. You think it's a good idea to go to events where people are trying to get federal money and they're paying to see you?
They're not paying to see me.
I thought you just said you spoke at events where people paid.
Not to see me. I mean, I'm not that important.
You're the... Wow. You learn new things every day. You are... What's your title? You're the director of what?
Of the Loan Programs Office.
You're the director of the loan programs for the federal government, Department of Energy. People who want to get loans from the government are paying to see you, and you think that that's fine? That's not a rhetorical question.
New this morning, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt is asking multiple McCurtain County officials to step down from their jobs immediately. And he's sending in state investigators to see if anything illegal has happened. This move comes after the sheriff, a county commissioner, the jail administrator, and a sheriff's investigator were recorded by a local newspaper at a county meeting expressing frustration that they could not hang Black people anymore, and also openly threatening to kill two newspaper reporters.
After they dropped their bomb and flames engulfed the home, they cheered "It's a boy," like it was some twisted game. They turned the destruction of innocent Palestinian families into a celebration. This isn't a war, it's not defense, this is joy in genocide, it's pure evil.
This boy here, very quiet. This boy here.
إيش اسمه أحمد؟ أحمد.
Why are you so quiet?
أخو سيدي وستي وخالي وأختي وسيدي وستي.
Who did this?
مين عمل هيك يا أحمد؟ يهود. شوف.
Thank you very much for talking to me.
We're about to stop filming when a young girl who has been silent raises her hand and says she has something she wants to say.
هم كتير بدهم احنا بدناش نعمل سلام مع اليهود لانه اليهود هم يعني خلوا امي وابوي يستشهدوا يعني قطعوا قلبي لما شفت امي وابويا يعني قاعدين بيستشهدوا قدامي وامي راح نص راسها وابويا يعني راسه طلع عقله من راسه وتصاب بخصرته وتصاب برجله. بعد هيك يعني كله اخويا صلاح قال يلا امشي نطلع برا. انا تمتني حاسه حالي لقيت بقفص لانه انا امي وابويا مش عندي.
I wonder how anyone could heal the despair and pain that these children feel.
This one's going to make your blood boil.
In the late 1940s and 50s, thousands of Yemeni Jews came to Israel, told they were coming to the Promised Land. But when they arrived, hundreds of their babies and toddlers vanished. Israeli officials told the parents they died. But there were no bodies, no graves, no death certificates. For decades, Mizrahi families said, our children were stolen, and they were right. Multiple investigations have since revealed that babies, mostly from Yemeni, Moroccan, and Balkan families, were likely taken and given to Ashkenazi families or adopted abroad. Why? Because the ruling elite thought the Mizrahim were inferior, because a white baby was seen as more modern and suitable. The Israeli state gaslit these families for decades. Only in the 2000s did a few files start to be released, and even today, no one has been held accountable. So when people tell you that Zionism saved Jews, ask the Yemeni mothers who were told that their child had died when in fact they'd been stolen.
What interest should a Homeland Security agent have in a first grader?
On Monday, multiple Homeland Security agents showed up at 2 elementary schools in Los Angeles, according to LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho. These agents were stopped, questioned, and turned away by principals at Lillian Elementary and Russell Elementary Schools, both in the Florence Graham neighborhood.
They wanted access to the students to determine their well-being, based on, according to the agents, the fact that when they entered this country, they entered as unaccompanied minors. It is well known that these students are under the care of relatives.
According to Carvalho, the agents claimed they were not part of immigration and customs enforcement.
They conveyed to both principals that the parents or the legal guardians in charge of these children had provided them authorization for access to these kids in school. That is absolutely, blatantly untrue.
These agents asked specific questions about students ranging from 1st to 6th grade. The superintendent says they arrived in unmarked vehicles and wore casual clothing.
When the principals attempted to write down details about their IDs, they quickly hid their IDs.
Barthold, can you help me with explain a little bit on this? I was just looking at the chart here. And it says that in the calendar year 2027, someone that's making less than $15,000 will see an increase in federal taxes by 18.7%. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Gomez, and that's a consequence of loss of that premium tax credits, health care.
Okay, so, and then in calendar year 2020, anybody making less than $15,000 sees an increase of 53.5%. Anybody who's making $15,000 to $30,000 sees an increase by 11.7%. Is that correct?
Yeah, what calendar year are we in, Mr. Gomez?
2029. It's the next page.
2029. Yes.
And then we see the next page in 2031. Anyone making less than $15,000 sees that. Check this out. I thought this was a mistake. I thought I was not reading this correctly. An increase in their taxes of 74.3%. And from $15,000 to $30,000 of 20.6%. Is that correct? Or is that, did you guys make a mistake, or is that like...
No mistake in the numbers.
And they have no shame about it. You have no shame when it comes to hurting working men and women in this country. But the billionaires are the ones that make the most money and deserve the most help. That's your logic.
There is only one country that launched a deadly attack on the U.S. and still never got hit back. On June 8, 1967, a U.S. Navy ship named USS Liberty was patrolling the international waters of the Mediterranean Sea, just 13 nautical miles off the coastline of Egypt. Several fighter jets flew over the ship without launching any attack. But this was no ordinary vessel. It was a heavily guarded U.S. spy ship loaded with American soldiers. But a few hours later, those same fighter jets returned, and this time they launched a deadly and and brutal assault on the ship. The attack killed 34 American soldiers, left over 100 injured, and caused damage worth millions of dollars. Behind the shocking truth, it was revealed the fighter jets belonged to Israel. When Israel was asked why they carried out the attack, they claimed it was a mistake. They said they had mistaken the USS Liberty for an Egyptian warship preparing to launch an attack on Israel. However, during the investigations, survivors revealed the shocking truth. This was a lie. The USS Liberty was clearly flying a large American flag, visible from a great distance, making it impossible for the Israelis to mistake it for anything else. But the most disturbing part was that the U.S. never took revenge for the attack. Instead, they chose to cover it up. To this day, silence surrounds this brutal incident.
Why does it have to happen to us always? Why is it always the Jewish people? We didn't do anything.
Come again?
It wasn't us. Like, we really didn't do anything.
Who did your shadow? These people lie.
Critics of the Jewish state would say you guys started this war by attacking Iran about 48 hours ago.
No. We did not start.
Who did?
The Jewish people, Israel doesn't want to ever do a war.
Yet it
the
does.
entire world is really against Iran. I don't think anybody wants them to have nuclear weapons. So Israel's doing the job, and then Israel gets all the damage after.
The audacity of Zionists to lie, gaslight, be intellectually dishonest, be occupiers, aggressors, and still play the perpetual victim card should not only be studied, it should be called Zionacity, the sister to Caucasity. Because what in the Caucastic Zionacity is a reprehensible filth she just uttered.
And now you want to show the world how Israel has been hit. Now you cry. Now you scream that Israel is under attack, that your cities are in ruins, that you are the victims again. But what did you expect? Do you really think you could start a war, bomb people, kill their children, and face no consequences? Have you forgotten how you proudly said Israel has the right to defend itself? As your army dropped bombs on Gaza, flattened entire neighborhoods. Have you forgotten how you watched those bombs fall while you enjoyed watching it from the mountains with flags, lawn chairs, and filmed it like it was a show? Have you forgotten how every Palestinian was called a terrorist, even the babies, children, and even the elderly? Have you forgotten how you laughed while over 2,000 babies, children, and women were murdered by Israeli bombs? Let me remind you, you have been brainwashed. You've been used and abused by your own leaders to believe you are the chosen people. Well, your genocidal prime minister runs and hides like a chicken, leaving you behind as Iran's rockets rain down on you. He is using you as human shields, isn't it? And still, what you are facing now is not even 1% of the pain, the destruction, the genocide that Palestinians live with every single day. And remember this, Israel will fall. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. You now reach the moment that the whole world hates Israel. The whole world hates you because of what you have done, because of what you supported, because of what you said, and because of how you behave. Stop playing the victim. That time is over now.
Every black man should be a teacher so that they don't follow in the same mistakes or whatever that, or die in the same iniquity that we did. Let them know ahead of time so they can see it coming.
A ritual functionary who was called the chief of the astronomers. The chief of the astronomers is interestingly matched by a figure given exactly the same name in ancient Egypt, the chief of the astronomers. He was the high priest of Heliopolis, which was the cult center of the Giza pyramid. And just as the Skidi Poni, chief of the astronomers, wears a robe embossed with stars, so also does the ancient Egyptian chief of the astronomers. And furthermore, that robe embossed with stars, you can see from the leopard head here, it was in fact a leopard skin that was covered with stars, and in some cases in mortuary rituals the priests would wear a leopard skin. Again, I feel these connections become harder and harder to explain by coincidence.
How old were you when you realized this crazy fact about your favorite childhood drink? It is originated from North Africa as far back as 2300 BC. Some of y'all are drinking Horchata, watching this video right now, it's a two-way glass. I can see right through you. Essentially, when the Romans conquered Egypt, they fell in love with the drink and named it hordiata. And then in the 8th century, when the Moors took hordiata to West Africa and then Spain, it blew up in Spain, France, and parts of Europe. And then when the Spaniards decided to go to Mexico, they wanted to bring hordiata. Now, hordiata or horchata de chufa was originally made with tiger nuts. When they went to Mexico, they forgot the tiger nuts. Alguien se le olvidó los tigre huevitos. So they're like, how are we going to make this horchata? We don't got chufa. So they made it with rice. And then agua de horchata was born.
In Haiti, where they get all the rice.
The man that owned this, Pastor Moise, he named it KPK rice. Rice, the canal will not be stopped.
Nicholas. Pastor Moses.
This is the face of the movement.
A lot of people have been telling me, I'm so tired of this American rice. All I want is Haitian rice.
Since 1981, the United States has followed a policy. We rich countries that produce a lot of food should sell it to poor countries and relieve them of the burden of producing their own food. It's maybe been good for some of my farmers in Arkansas, but it has not worked. It was a mistake. I am not pointing the finger at anybody. I did that. I have to live every day with the consequences of the lost capacity to produce a rice crop in Haiti to feed those people because of what I did.
What specifically is different about this rice?
The rice that they sent to Haiti got a lot of arsenic.
What does arsenic do to your body?
Arsenic can give you like kidney problem, respiration problem, KPK. It's an organic rice. Blood sugar people can eat it. Nothing gonna happen because it's bio.
Not only are you giving better tasting rice, but you're saving people's bodies.
In Haiti, they prefer the white one. In Miami, they prefer the yellow one.
Which one you like better, white or yellow?
I like white.
People in Miami, if you want to have rice that's not gonna kill your insides, have some KPK. The bagged rice over there is different than this one.
So this rice would be a rice that's sifted and cleaned and ready to be packaged. And when it comes straight from the crop, there are these pieces that are not edible, and they're cleaning, making the rice pure.
Oh, right here.
Exactly. Haitians were eating American rice. That made Haitians more sick. Heart disease increased, stomach gastroparesis.
She's my sister. She got like blood sugar. She cannot eat American rice. But with this rice, nothing. You know, the blood pressure is not go high.
You go have Haitian food in America, you think you're eating the same thing but then back home, but it's a completely different thing.
If you go to the National Institute of Health's website, it's a .gov, you'll see all the vitamins and minerals that are required to be in rat food. Not suggested, required. They don't care about your dog, your cat, your horse, or any other pets, but rat food is required to contain all the vitamins and minerals necessary to be a healthy body. But why the rats? Because of lab rats. They test all kinds of stuff on a lab rat to get an idea on how it would affect a human body, and failing on a lab rat's not a big deal. It happens all the time. And when you're developing medicine intended for the masses, you need to start with a good, healthy body that you can manipulate to be in the condition to see how your medicine is going to work. And they go through a lot of rats. And since they need all these healthy rats, and you can't get insurance on a rat, so you better keep it healthy. And the best way that they have found to keep a rat healthy is to feed it properly. So why don't they have that nutrient requirement on all pet foods? Well, it's because you buy medicine for your pets. You can get insurance on your pets. There's money to be made. Speaking of insurance, do you know how much a sick baby is worth? The FDA has a required nutrient list for infant formula as well, but the rats get more.
And then decided to do another parasite cleanse. So this time I got apple cider vinegar, clay, and Epsom salt. I was missing the baking soda, but this works just as well. So I laid in there, put my feet in there in the hot water, and I'm not gonna lie, that is a parasite, guys. This works. That white thing, another parasite. My feet got pale, but also they have red dots all over them, which I don't understand. That's another parasite, guys. Disgusting. That came out of me, like insane. And then, okay, those are hairs, but then the white thing that's floating around, I don't know what that was. And this is another parasite. Like, I'm in disbelief. I'm going to try it again next week with baking soda to see if it works better. But this was insane. I'm actually really grossed out.
Flock cameras are the main thing that law enforcement uses now to catch criminals. That's what it is. As clear as I can say it. What we'll do is I'll put a picture of the flock camera on this so that you'll see it. But they're everywhere. Once you see this thing, you're going to realize that you see them everywhere. It is a camera that is positioned to capture your license. That's what a flock camera is. But these cameras capture more than your license. They can capture the interior of your vehicle as you drive by these cameras, especially the positioning of the camera. And it's legal. And so what happens is this camera captures your tag. And when it captures your tag, it's able to detect where your vehicle has been Anywhere in the United States where there are flock cameras, if you're in Georgia and you travel to New York, every time your vehicle tag gets captured by a flock camera, it is entered into a database.
You didn't have to cut me off, make out like it never happened, and now we were nothing. And I don't even need your love, but you treat me like a stranger, and that feels so rough. No, you didn't have to stoop so low.
This is a combo bin of meat. A combo bin is 2,000 pounds approximately of meat that's coming in from a boning facility where they take it off the carcass and put it into here.
The meat in these boxes comes from many different animals and many different places. Some is even from overseas. All of it is ground together to make the juicy hamburger Americans love. Hamburger used to be the scraps left over from butchering just one cow. But a significant change has occurred. Now, parts of many cows are blended together by the ton.
If we take the meat from one animal, grind it up and make ground beef from just one animal, we're including only the bacteria from one animal. But if we take the meat from 1,000 different animals and grind that together, we're pooling the bacteria from 1,000 different animals as well.
So explain this to me. How many different cows would be in one burger?
Well, I suspect that there are hundreds or even thousands of animals that have contributed to a single hamburger.
The CDC took part in helping diagnose biopsies from lung tumors and lymph nodes of a 41-year-old man who was HIV positive. The tumors looked similar to human cancer, but the CDC lab studies revealed the cancer cells were not human. The revelation solved a 3-year hunt for the cause of the man's illness. A similar parasite transmitted by the kissing bug can cause Chagas disease. It can stay dormant and undetected up to 20 years. It can later manifest itself in a congestive heart failure after showing symptoms of swollen eyelids and rashes. As parasitic infections are rising in Western medicine, so are the misdiagnoses. In third world countries, parasitic infections are often caught early due to how common it is, while in the United States, it's taken up to surgery to realize what exactly they're dealing with.
The black man thinks that if he becomes a better house nigger, the white man will be more merciful to him. So when we saw them planning to kill Gaddafi, we all looked at Mugabe was there, Zuma was there, Museveni was there, Kagame was there. They all knew. And when they tried to rush into Libya, they were told by the Western NATO, stay away. We are going to get rid of you. Go and find the interview by Museveni himself admitting. We were there and we were told to look away, and we looked away. Why? Because you thought that it's Libya. You thought that it was Saddam Hussein. You thought it was Vietnam. You thought it was Syria. You thought it was Afghanistan. And what happens in Afghanistan will not happen to us. Lo and behold.
Ukraine gave up nukes, got invaded. Saddam Hussein gave up nukes, got invaded and executed. Gaddafi gave up chemical weapons, got invaded, raped and killed. Again, if you're the Iranians, are you not looking at this thinking, this means we need nukes? I would rather not give them an incentive to go get nuclear weapons. I'm anti-nuclear weapons for anyone. So I don't want Iran to have nukes, but the best way for Iran not to have nukes is not to attack them. That makes countries want to have nukes more. It's just rational to go, oh, the countries who have nukes like North Korea, they don't get invaded. So why give them an incentive to get more nukes? Why not actually have a weapons of mass destruction free region? You know which country does have nukes in the Middle East? Israel, in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. You know which country doesn't allow IAEA inspectors into the country? Israel. You know which country hasn't signed the NPT, unlike Iran? Israel. We should talk about Israel's nuclear weapons, which actually incentivize others in the regions, not just Israel, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, to think about nuclear weapons of their own. I'd rather not have more nukes in the Middle East with anyone. You and I oppose Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We agree on that, right? Putin claimed that Ukraine would one day attack Russia with NATO support. That's why I'm doing it. That was a argument. You and I rejected Putin's argument in Ukraine. You and I have rejected the Israeli argument now in Gaza. You don't believe what they're saying about Gaza. I don't know why you're believing them on this when you were rightly calling out the from the UK and the US in 2003 over Iraq. Saddam Hussein was not an imminent threat, and Iran was not an imminent threat, and Israel attacked them illegally last week while there were nuclear negotiations going on, Piers. One last point. If Israel cared about stopping a nuclear weapon, you would go back into a nuclear deal that prevents Iran from a weapon. And guess who they killed on Thursday night? Not just generals, Piers. They killed Ali Shamkhani, the lead nuclear negotiator who was supposed to be in Oman yesterday with the Americans.
I can make a point. Now, she said the fact that 6 million Jews died. However, in 1988, the site at Auschwitz where people can go and tour the gas chambers, they lowered their figure from 4 million dead to 1 million dead. So that was 3 million taken out of the equation overnight. Where did these 3 million go? Were they never there in the first place? Were they in the camps and did they survive? And if you can lose 3 million people overnight, who's to say that 1 million remaining figure is not also wrong?
And let me ask you this question. Weren't some of these figures ascertained after the fact because they went back and did censuses after?
The source of the famous 6 million figure is an affidavit by by somebody who was brought in at the Nuremberg trial in 1945-46. Even Raoul Hilberg, who's considered one of the major figures in the Holocaust, Holocaust historian, is professor at the University of Vermont. He concedes himself that the 6 million figure is based upon crude calculations. It is only highly dubious, and he says we must re-examine this whole question of the 6 million. Look, it's very interesting, Montel. People have heard over and over about 6 million Jews dying in Europe during the Second World War. How many people in this audience know how many Germans died during the Second World War? How many Americans died during the Second World War? How many Chinese died during the Second World War? In America, as time goes by, the more time passes, the more there's emphasis on the fate of one particular people during the Second World War, almost to the exclusion of everyone else.
They have taught white people that oppression is godly and that power belongs to us by divine right. After the Civil Rights Movement, powerful white people, men, saw that their grip was slipping. Black people were winning court cases. Poor people were organizing. Women were demanding rights. How dare we? LGBTQ people were coming out of their closets, and the foundations of white male dominance were cracking. So they thought, what can we use that no one will question? In 1979, Jerry Falwell founded the Moral Majority. He said it was about championing family values. That was a lie. The real trigger was that the IRS had begun revoking tax exemptions for whites-only Christian schools. Those whites-only schools were created specifically to avoid integration. Falwell's own school, Liberty Christian Academy, was one of them. The platform of the Moral Majority ended up getting built around the issue of abortion. Although that wasn't the original plan, they basically test drove different topics to see which ones would resonate the most with the audience they needed to capture, which was white Americans, white Christian Americans. It had everything to do with maintaining the right to discriminate, yet still enjoy government benefits. This guy named Paul Weyrich, who was a conservative political strategist, he teamed up with Falwell to build a political base. He admitted that abortion had not really motivated white evangelicals until it became politically useful. Their real grievance was losing control over who could sit in their classrooms, walk into their churches, and live in their neighborhoods. Once they realized that abortion could mask their racial panic, they made that their headline issue. They built a movement that turned pulpits into propaganda platforms. Sunday services became political strategy sessions. That's illegal. You're not supposed to be able to do that at a church if you're getting tax exemption. Ministers told white families that their enemies were not the wealthy elites exploiting their labor. They were not the politicians cutting their wages and stealing their pensions. The churches pointed to the poor, the black, the brown, the queer, the immigrant. Those people are the one.
Along the way, I discovered we've been hoodwinked. You know, people use crack. Yeah, that's true. But it wasn't crack that made sure they didn't have a job. It wasn't crack that repossess people's houses. It wasn't crack that kept us out of Miami Beach. It was white racism. But yet we're talking about crack. And so it frustrates the fuck out of me when I have to talk about crack as if it's the problem, when I know it's not the problem. I give crack as part of my job to people in the lab and carefully study their behaviors. I've given literally thousands of doses of crack to people and studied their behavior and published it in the scientific literature. Do you think my federal government would allow me to do that if crack was causing all these problems? Not no, but fuck no. So I get impatient when I hear like crack is a problem, when I know that people have real problems.
Latinos and Hispanics, more specifically non-black Latinos and Hispanics, will pretend that the N-word is not offensive, but then get offended by being called something like Latinx. Non-black Latinos will pretend that the N-word is not offensive, but then get offended when you ask them to not use the N-word. A common thing that you'll hear Latinos say when they're called out for using the N-word is, well, if I can't use it, they can't use it either. They referring to black people. And that begs the question, why do you want to say it so much? Latinos, you have so many alternatives to use. Latinos have a whole other language of words that they can use instead of the N-word, like fu, ese, whatever you want. But instead you choose the N-word. And it's one thing to use the N-word and then change your language when somebody tells you it's not okay. It's another thing to defend your use of the N-word because you're too lazy to expand your vocabulary. And a lot of Latinos will go on and say, well, it's not that big a deal, you know? I have black friends and I say it around them and they don't mind. And that's fine. Sure, if your black friends are okay with you saying that, that's them. But let's be honest. If you are a non-black person using the N-word, you are very careful with who you use that word around. Because you know that the moment you use it around the wrong person, that you will get checked and it won't be as nice as somebody telling you to not use the word anymore. Let's stop playing dumb. I heard somebody say that if we can't use the N-word, then black people can't eat tacos. As if eating some culture's culinary items is the equivalent of using a racial derogatory slur that was meant to dehumanize people. It is not the same. It is not an equivalency.
And what is programmed, what it does is subconscious mind is programmed a series of information. And it goes about making the information reality. So if it's programmed wrong information, it will produce the reality of the wrong information. When you give it right information, it will reject the right information if the wrong information got there first. You see what I'm saying? So what we have to do is to undo ourselves.
African spirituality seeks to build you from inside. What you look like does not matter. What you are like matters. School has produced for us educated people, but who are unethical. For the door, use humility. When you inside, use wisdom. Be humble at entrance. Be intelligent at operation. Because academic qualification without ethical and moral behavior is a passport to the jail. You are now an accountant running a $16 million budget and you don't have ethics.
John D. Rockefeller seized U.S. media. He also hijacked U.S. medicine. When it was discovered that drugs could be produced from petroleum, America's top oil mogul ordered his army of propagandists to invert reality accordingly. Medicines used for thousands of years were suddenly classified as alternative, while the new, petroleum-based, highly addictive, and patentable drugs were declared the gold standard. After buying a German pharmaceutical company that manufactured chemicals of war for Adolf Hitler, Rockefeller leveraged his political influence by pressing Congress to declare natural healing modalities unscientific quackery. Rockefeller then took control of the American Medical Association and began offering massive grants to top medical schools under the mandate that only his approved curriculum based on the healing powers of herbs, plants, and diet was erased from most medical textbooks. Doctors and professors who objected to Rockefeller's plan were crucified by the media, removed from the AMA, and stripped of their license to teach and practice medicine. When evidence began to emerge that petroleum-based medicines were causing cancer, Mr. Rockefeller founded the American Cancer Society, through which he suppressed that information. and the reason that medical error is currently the third leading cause of death. The pharmaceutical industry spends at least twice the amount as big oil to influence laws, policies, and public perception. No industry has more power over our lives than Big Pharma.
Identity is business. When you usurp someone's identity, you are able to give them a new identity, which must be supported by cultural expression, religious expression, fashion expression, food expression. Lifestyle of the colonized must be supported by the colonized.
The Flammarion engraving, a renowned artwork, captivatingly depicts the sky as a machine. Created by an unknown artist, it gained fame through its inclusion in Camille Flammarion's book, Atmosphère Meteorologie Populaire, in 1888. However, the notion of the sky as a machine finds additional support in ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text attributed to the biblical figure Enoch, there are intriguing descriptions of celestial mechanisms and the inner workings of the cosmos. It speaks of celestial spheres, heavenly gates, and complex systems governing the movement of astronomical bodies. These passages suggest a celestial machinery beyond our earthly understanding. The Flammarion engraving, with its portrayal of an individual piercing through the celestial sphere, aligns with the idea of unveiling the hidden mechanisms described in the ancient texts. It echoes the concept that the sky is not merely a passive barrier, but a dynamic realm governed by intricate mechanisms. This depiction of the sky as a machine resonates deeply with the scientific outlook prevalent during the time of Flammarion's book. It reflects the growing understanding that the natural world operates according to discoverable laws, and that the cosmos can be deciphered through observation and empirical study. Furthermore, the incorporation of the Book of Enoch into this narrative adds another layer of meaning. It suggests that the artist behind the Flammarion engraving may have been influenced by ancient wisdom and esoteric knowledge. By merging scientific curiosity with mystical and ancient teachings, the artwork becomes a potent symbol of the convergence between different realms of understanding. Thus, the Flammarion engraving offers a unique fusion of scientific exploration, mystical yearning, and ancient wisdom. It invites contemplation about the interplay of natural laws, the mysteries of the celestial realms, and the potential for human discovery beyond the boundaries of our known world. By intertwining the ideas from the Book of Enoch, it lends greater depth to the portrayal of the sky as a fascinating and intricate celestial machine.
I'm blowing lonesome, lost in the way could be.